The move to farming is the most important decision our species ever made. It gave us cities, kings, money, armies, everything you would call civilization. And here is the strange part. The people who actually made that decision came out of it shorter, sicker and more overworked. We know because we have their bones. Skeletons from after the switch are measurably shorter, about 4 centimetres below what their own genes predicted. Their teeth are full of cavities. They carry more infection, more stress damage, and more signs of missing nutrients, not fewer. Researchers have compared societies before and after they took up farming, all over the world. In 19 cases out of 21, health got worse. Not one measure, across the board. Whatever farming was, for the person doing it, it was not an upgrade, which creates a real puzzle. Because farming was not one bad idea that spread. It was invented separately, from scratch, in somewhere between 6 and 9 different places. The Middle East, China, Central America, the Andes, New Guinea, by people who had no contact with each other at all. And that detail changes everything. One invention can be a genius, or an accident. The same invention appearing again and again, on different continents, within a few thousand years of each other, after 200,000 years of nobody farming at all. That is not an idea. That is a pressure. So what was pressing? The climate. Twice, in opposite directions. Around 13,000 years ago, the planet lurched back into a sudden cold, dry snap. Forests shrank. The big wild grasses and seed plants people had been living on became scarce. The old way of eating stopped working. People did what you do when the wild version of your food runs out. They started looking after it, weeding around the patches that were left, scattering seed near camp. Not farming yet, just helping the wild plants along, because there was no longer enough to simply take. Then, about 11,500 years ago, the cold snap ended. Fast. Within decades, possibly within years, the world settled into the warm, stable climate we still live in. Grasslands exploded, and for the first time in human memory, next year became predictable. That matters, because planting is a bet. You bury food you could eat today on the promise of more food in 6 months. In a climate that swings wildly, that bet is suicide. In a stable one, it starts for the first time to look sane. And then there is the discovery that broke the textbook version of this story. In the hills of southern Turkey stands a place called Göbekli Tepe, rings of carved stone pillars, some weighing more than a car, built by people who did not farm. The textbook said farming came first. Surplus food made villages possible, villages made temples possible. This place says otherwise. The gathering came first. Hundreds of people met, worked, carved, and hauled stone together, and then had to be fed. The temple may have created the farm, not the other way round. However it started, here is why it never stopped. Once you plant a field, you have to stay beside it, to weed it, to guard it, to bring in the harvest. The moment you plant, you are no longer free to leave. Staying changes the family. A mother on the move can carry one small child. A mother in a village can raise several at once. So farming populations grow fast. And more children means more mouths, which means more fields, which means more work, which means more children. Notice what that is. It is a ratchet. Every turn makes the next turn compulsory. Within a few generations, there are far too many people to feed by hunting and gathering ever again. The door you came in through has closed behind you. And that is why you will not find a society that fully committed to farming and then walked back out. Some villages failed. Some individuals slipped away. But no farming people ever collectively returned to foraging. The trap turns one way, but the ratchet only explains why we stayed. It does not explain what farming built. For that, look at what makes grain different from everything humans had ever eaten before. Grain keeps. Grain can be stored, measured, split, and moved, which means, for the first time, wealth can pile up. And anything that can be stored and measured can also be counted by someone else and taken. You cannot tax a good day's hunting. You can absolutely tax a granary. Out of that one fact comes almost everything we have covered on this channel. The stored surplus feeds people who do not farm. Soldiers, priests, kings, scribes. Storage creates property. Property creates inequality. And guarding the store creates power. Every empire that ever rose grew out of a grain field. So the honest answer to why we started farming is not that it was better. For the people who lived through it, it was worse, and their skeletons say so. We started because the climate broke the old life, then steadied just enough to make planting a sane bet. And after that, every step locked in the last one. Nobody ever sat down and chose cities, taxes, landlords, and empires. They chose to get through one more winter. 12,000 years later, you live in a world made entirely of the consequences. Which is worth remembering. History's biggest decisions rarely feel like decisions. They feel like getting by. If you want more questions like this one answered simply, subscribe. New episodes every week.